O Lord of hosts, be with us, for we have none other help in times of adversity but Thee. O Lord of hosts, have mercy on us.
There we go. And so this is what we're getting ready to read. He has a section called the Gospel according to Lao Zi. And so like I said, this is a generous translation. So they're using the translation by Jiming Xian, the teacher of Father Seraphim Rose. So they're using his translation of the Tao Te Ching, and they're adding the sort of Gospel of John to this and showing how it overlaps. So they do take a liberalness in the way that they translate the words, but you're going to see as I read through these chapters the incredible way in which the Taoist chapters of the Tao Te Ching match so nicely onto our notion of the Logos. So here we go. This is chapter 1. This is the Gospel according to Lao Zi, and it reads, Before light was made, there was the primal light that was not made, the primal essence, dwelling in the darkness of incomprehensibility. Of this the ancient prophets spoke, saying, He made darkness his secret place, the formless and immaterial place of knowledge. Whether our understanding or concept gain no admittance, and the ancient sage spoke too of this, calling it, quote, the darkness within darkness, the gate to all mystery. There is no name whereby the primal essence can be named, neither in this age nor in the age to come. We call him essence, for he is a sea of essence, interdeterminate and without bounds, spreading far and wide beyond all notion of time or nature. He is wholly essence and solely essence. Yet he is above essence, because he is not the essence of anything that is. We call him being. For before all else was, he is. Now catch that there. So before all else was, he is. That's a breakdown in the sort of temporal use of time, right? So he is in a context of past tense is showing his eternality. That's what's trying to be highlighted there. Yet he is above being, above all existing things, even above existence itself. We call him the One, for he alone is wholly simple and without parts. Big, right? God is without parts. Yet he transcends the antinomy of the one and the many. Being not limited to any concepts, even the concept of the one, he is neither one nor unity, neither many nor multiplicity. Love it, love it, love it. Finally, we call him mind or thought, for he is himself mind by essence, wholly mind and solely mind. Yet he is entirely above mind and thought too, for every thought expresses a duality, the relationship of the thinker and the object thought of. Neither of these two can return to complete simplicity in itself, for the thinker has need of the object, and the object has need of the thinker. But the primal essence is neither of these who think nor what is thought of, for he is beyond them. Unlimited, self-existing, free and simple, standing in need of nothing. I loved that part, though, that he is the primal essence, is neither those who think nor what is thought of, highlighting that you literally cannot think of God, right? We use cataphatic terms. God is love, God is unity, God is three, God is all this stuff. But ultimately, when it comes down to this, God can't be thought of. And I love that Lao Tzu is highlighting that there. To convince or be convinced is proper to the nature of things, secondary to the primal essence. Thus, the essence that can be conceived of as essence is not the primal essence. Exactly. God's beyond conception. Thus, the essence that can be conceived of as essence is not the primal essence. The being that can be limited to existence is not the primal being. The one that can be limited to the concept of oneness is not the primal unity. And the mind that can be thought of is not the primal mind. The one who still in some way possesses any thought has not yet left duality and arrived. But the one who has completely abandoned it has arrived in some fashion at the primal mind through having supremely relinquished the power of thinking. That was chapter 1. Here's another one. We have another super chat from a Russian gentleman, Velikowitz. I'm not sure how I pronounce your first name, but he threw in $4.99. Thank you very much, brother. He says, "What are your thoughts about perennialism when viewed?" I'll come back to that. I'll come back to that super chat later. So chapter 2 reads, "As our mind utters from itself a word, so did the primal mind utter the primal word, the logos." The primal mind essence is a womb. The primal mind essence is a father. Out of this womb of the mind, the word was begotten outside time. Of this birth, the ancient prophet spoke, speaking as the father mind. From the womb, that is, from my essence, before the morning star have I begotten you. And of this birth, the ancient sage also spoke, saying, something mysteriously formed, born before heaven and earth, tranquil, boundless, dependent on nothing, and changing not. Mind does not exist without word, nor word without mind. A thought of the mind is a word hidden within. A word is a thought which has come without. I love that. A word is a thought that has come without. Beautiful. Thought is transformed into word, and word transmit thought to the hearers. Mind coming from itself is thus the father of the word, and the word is the son of the mind. Before the mind, the word was impossible, and the word does not come from anywhere outside, but rather from the mind itself. Thus also the Father, the all-embracing mind, the thought above and beyond thoughts, has a son begotten of his essence, the word above and beyond words. Please smash that like, guys. If you have just came and you're joining us, we are moving through the Gospel according to Lao Zi. So we are looking at a Logos-infused Tao Te Ching right now. And we're reading chapter 3 from Christ the Eternal Tao, and it says, as our actions proceed from our mind, so does the primal action proceed from the primal mind. As the primal word is like a sound, a still sound, so is the primal action like a breath, a still breath. And as a breath rests in a word that is uttered, so does the primal breast rest in the primal word. In you there is breath, material and impersonal, diffusing itself while sustaining your separate and distinct life. In the primal essence as life itself, there is also breath, but a breath that is purely spiritual and personal, not diffusing itself, but sustaining the life of everything without distinction. The breath of the primal mind is like a wind. A wind blows where it wills. You hear its sound, but cannot tell whence it comes or whither it goes. So is the breath of who, capital Who, so God, rests in the Word. And so are those beings who rest in the breath of heaven. That would seem like the Spirit, if you ask me. But let's see. Moving forward. I don't want to read every chapter. We'll be here literally all day. I just want to read this section. So this first section of chapters is called In the Beginning Was the Way. And so let me grab another chapter here we can read and then move on to the next section. So here's chapter 6, and it reads, the word is begotten of the mind. The breath proceeds from the mind. Yet there was never a time when the mind existed without the word and breath. They dwelt in the darkness that was before darkness, outside time. Yet they made all things within time. For time and darkness came into being only when movement and light were made. By thinking which is beyond thought, the primal essence creates. The word brings forth and fulfills the command of the mind. The action breath accomplishes and perfects. And with these two hands of the mind, thought becomes deed. So the next section is calling of the way. So that was the beginning of the way. So it obviously was talking about the logos before incarnating, right? Well, now this one's called the coming of the way. And so here's chapter 10. Before the Word came into the world, the sages sought him out in every place. They sought him not, but sensed his presence everywhere. They found him in living beings, in mountain crags, flowing streams, in seas and winds. But he was not these things, but he spoke in these things, guiding them. All things followed his course. Therefore the sages called him also by his other name, the Way, the Tao, the course that all things are to follow. The trees, the birds, the rivers, and the winds, these had no choice but to follow the Tao. Man alone is given choice. Man alone can follow or go his own way. If he follows the way, he will suffer with pain. If he follows the way, he will suffer with the pain of the world. But if he will find the original harmony, the Tao, if he follows his own way, I'm sorry, that sentence is broken. What it should say. If he follows the way, he will suffer with pain of the world, but he will find the original harmony. If he follows his own way, he will suffer only with himself, and within him will be all chaos. So I thought that was a good one. Here is another one. This is chapter 13, again in the coming of the way. And finding the traces of the way in nature, the sage found the simple nature from which man had departed. Return to the babe, he said. Return to the state of the uncarved block, of the pristine simplicity, the primitive origin of man. Here indeed is the main thread of the way. In his infancy, his primitive origin, mankind had been made to rejoice in the way, the Tao, his source, to abide in him, to cleave to him and never depart, made to rise himself above the things of the senses, above every bodily appearance, to become selfless like the Tao, to go beyond himself in selfless love, to contemplate the Tao, the way extending into the universe, to know the inner essence of created things, and moving even beyond these, to behold the primal Word, seeing in him, in purity and stillness of thought, the image of the primal mind. Such was man's original nature, the state of the uncarved block, the pristine simplicity, in which the simple and undivided way had made him, in which he was ever to remain, but from which he had departed. For not striving to go back himself, he preferred to seek things nearer to himself, the body and its senses, removing himself from the invisible way, from the way of the Tao. He began to regard his own visible self. Therefore the ancient sage, seeking to return to his original nature, to the immaterial source beyond the realm of sense, said, quote, "One's perfect virtue lies in his conformity to the way. The way may be styled the form of the formless, the image of the imageless. Go out to meet it, and you will discover no beginning. Follow after, and you will discover no end. Lay hold of this ancient doctrine and apply it to the nourishment of your soul. You will then understand the primitive origin of man, the main thread of the way." I thought that was a good one. I like that. Here is another one. Chapter 14. "When my contemplation is complete," said the ancient sage, "and my quiescence is maintained unalloyed, although the various forms are restless, I am looking for the return to nature. Before the way came into the world, the restless world groaned for his coming. For the one being who had been given the choice of whether to follow the way had departed from the way, disturbing the original harmony. The one governance over all of nature had departed from his own governor and from nature, disturbing the original hierarchy. Made to find pleasure in the way, he had instead found pleasure through his senses. Made to desire the way, he had instead desired created things. Made to remain in primal simplicity, he had fragmented himself into many parts. Going against his primitive origin, ancient man had entered into contention against himself, contending with himself and others for the objects of desire. He had spread contention throughout the earth, having corrupted his own nature. He had brought all nature into corruption with him. Therefore did the various forms that were made groan for their Maker, to restore the lost to the one way, to return him to his true nature, to cleanse the filth of his corruption, and thus again regain the original harmony. Though the various forms are restless, I am looking for the return to nature. Do you hear the restless earth? Its groaning, O ancient man, O lost one? It is not the wind, for all things are still. The lake is calm. The leaves do not rustle on the trees. And yet the spirit hears that cry, that never-ceasing moan that existed before your kingdoms. You covered the earth with your kingdoms in order to stifle that cry. But it would not be smothered under stones. Your mind speaks incessantly with the voice of desire in order to drown out that cry, but the heart hears it beneath the mind's din. To the ears it is a silent moan. To the spirit is louder than the mightiest tempest that the elements can make. Will he come then? He will come. How will he come? It is a man who disturbed the great harmony. Therefore, as a man, he will come to restore it. Whither will he come? The way always seeks the lowest place. And so that was the end of chapter 14. I love that one. I thought that was a good one too. Here's a short one, chapter 16. Water, said the ancient sage, quote, greatly benefits all things but does not compete with them. It dwells in lowly places that all disdain, and so it is like the way. The way came and emptied himself in a lowly cave, not amidst human dwellings, but in the home of a lowly animal, or a home of lowly animals, born on a lowly bed, dirty straw strewn on the ground. Happy, prosperous people slept in soft beds in the nearby inn, but while other infants wept that night, he was silent, and the sheep bleated like rippling water. Here is chapter 17. We'll read this one, then head to the next section. Chapter 17, this is the coming of the way section, reads, the way continuously creates, said the ancient sage, and the power of the way nourishes and sorry, my phone's going off. Okay. And the power of the way nourishes, enlarges, feeds, completes, matures, cherishes, and broods over all things. The way creates, but does not demand for itself. It acts, but it is not boastful. It controls, but not with compulsion. This may be called the mystery of the power of the way. The 10,000 things all honor the way and respect its power, but without demand or orders. When the way came to earth, quietly undertook the cloak of flesh. He did not demand respect, nor was he wont to reveal who his true name, a name worthy of all honor. He left it with those whom he had made to utter his name. Word of the mind, Son of the Father, Son of the living God, hiding his glory in the deep pools of the valley. He called himself, rather, quote, the least in the kingdom of heaven, unquote, and, quote, the Son of Man, unquote. For he had made himself the Son, the offspring of his own offspring, lowering himself beneath man who had falsely exalted himself. Thus, he to whom the 10,000 things give honor and respect, give honor to his one disobedient child, man, as a child gives honor to his parent. Wow, I loved that part where he talked about lowering himself beneath the man who falsely exalted himself, right? So the God of creation becomes lowlier than that which he created to redeem the fallenness of that creation. Beautiful. Okay, next section is the opening of the way. We'll read a few chapters in this section. This one comes to us from chapter 19. Again, this is in the opening of the way, a new theme section. For 30 years of his life on earth, the word was silent before the people. For 50 centuries, the world had waited for the word, that is, its maker. For 50 centuries, the world waited for the word that its maker would speak. And finally, with the people before him, on a sloping meadow overlooking a lake, the Word spoke his word. The way revealed his way. And he who had taken the lowest places spoke to his creatures of lowliness, saying, quote, blessed are the meek, the poor in spirit. Blessed are you who weep now. He who had come not seeking praise said, quote, blessed are you when they revile and persecute you. These were the first words that the Word spoke to mankind. Being meek, being himself reviled, and weeping with those who wept. All right. Here's a good one. Chapter 21. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, quote, the sage acts without boasting, completes his work without seeking merit, because he lays claim to no credit. The credit cannot be taken from him. He wants only things that are unwanted. He restores the 10,000 things to their own nature. When the way became flesh, he came to the unwanted among people. He came not to the good, but to the bad. He came not to the right, but to the wrong. He came not to the beautiful, but to the ugly. He came not to the healthy, but to the sick. He came not to the rich, but to the poor. Therefore the good, the righteous, the beautiful, the healthy, and the rich railed at him, smote him, and cast him out as evil. For he was a reproach to these seeming goodness, turning it on its head. Only he was good, who reached down to the evil, in order to raise them to the true goodness of their original nature. Only he was worthy of glory. He sought no credit for himself, saying, quote, why do you call me good? There is none good save one, unquote. That is his Father, the mind, who existed with him from pre-eternity. The good, the righteous, the beautiful, and the rich heard not the word, the Logos. For to them the Logos was not spoken. To the poor the word was spoken. And when they heard it, their hearts burned within them. For the Maker of the universe spoke as one who was poor like them. And they said, quote, no man ever spoke like this man, unquote. That was good. I love that. Here's chapter 22. He was condemned as a friend of harlots, and the harlots became virgins. He was condemned as a friend of thieves, and the thieves restored their stolen goods fourfold. He was condemned as a friend of poor fishermen, and the poor fishermen caught the universe in their nets. He was condemned as a friend of outcasts, and the outcast inherited his kingdom. He was condemned, and they were created anew. He wept over what his creation had made of itself, and by his tears was it remade, restored to its true nature, its primitive origin. The first creation was the dust of the ground, the second, the water of the Spirit. Man. Okay. Here is, I'm going to move to chapter 24. Check out chapter 24. It says, "Go out and meet the way, said the ancient sage, and you will discover no beginning. Follow after, and you will find no end. The way, the Tao, dwells outside time. Yet he who made up time took up his abode within time, in a single material body, in a single time and place. Likewise, the way has no beginning or end. Yet he who made time, being in all things, abides in both the beginning and the end of time. For he said, quote, I am the beginning and the ending, the Alpha and the Omega. At the beginning, says the way, I knew you when you were not. And I spoke to you from the place of the end of time. From there I can promise you, I can vow to you and never break my word. For I not only know the end, I am the end. And at the end, where I am all in all. I have made you, says the way, and I sustain your every breath. I am holding you, and you will not fall unless you depart from me. You will be held up while you hold to my words. For at the end, where I am, though heaven and earth will pass away, my words will never pass away. Okay, let's see. Let's get another one. We'll do the last chapter in this section. It's chapter 27. So we'll read this one, then we'll move on to the next section. This one reads, the ancient sage, follower of the way, said, quote, he who takes upon himself the humiliation, the dirt of the people, is fit to be the master of the people. And the ancient prophet, foretelling of the coming of the way, said, quote, he bears our sins and is pained for us. He was wounded on account of our sins. He was bruised because of our iniquities. And by his stripes we are healed. All we like sheep have gone astray, and the Lord gave him up to our sins. In his humiliation, his judgment was taken away. Therefore he shall inherit many, and he shall divide the spoils of the mighty, because his soul was delivered to death, and he was numbered among the transgressors. And he bore the sins of many, and was delivered because of their iniquities. Why did the ancients treasure the way? Asked the sage. Was it not because the seeker finds what he seeks by it? And by it the guilty are forgiven and relieved of punishment? Therefore the way is the treasure of the universe. Again the ancient sage said, quote, he who takes upon himself the sins of the world is the king of the world, unquote. And the prophet, when the way became flesh, said, behold the Lamb of God who takes away the sin of the world, unquote. All right, good stuff. Next section is the emptying of the way. The emptying of the way. And the first one, we'll just read the first one, chapter 28. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, quote, "He who is conscious of honor and glory, yet keeps to disgrace, resembles the valley of the world," unquote. The way entered the city, and the crowd stood on either side of the road, shouting praise. The children laid clothes and branches under the hooves of the child ass on which he rode. He was conscious of the honor and glory, yet he knew that he was going to his ultimate humiliation. That some of those who now shouted his praises would soon be shouting for his death. For he is a man of sorrows, as foretold by the ancient prophet, a man of sorrows and acquainted with grief. Here's chapter 29. The ancient sage, follower of the way, said, "He who is conscious of honor and glory, yet keeps to disgrace, returns to pristine simplicity." The way left the city and descended into the valley of the world. Ascending again to the other side of the valley, he came to a garden, like unto the primordial garden in which his love had once been betrayed. And now the duplicitous one, pretending to return his love, betrays him with a kiss. Now the duplicitous one, pretending to do him reverence, disgraces him in front of all. Love ushers in freedom, but the duplicitous one puts him in shackles. The duplicitous one delivered the simple one to death, and the simple one was brought back into the city. Before, he had entered in honor to be led to final disgrace. Now he enters in disgrace to be held, though, in final honor. He being himself the way on which he trod, the way of return to pristine simplicity. Good stuff. Here's a couple short ones we can grab because I know it's getting kind of long. Chapter 31. They could have laid hands on him before, but he passed out of their hands many times. Their hour had not yet come then, but now the hour has come. It has come, and the power of darkness. The time has been fulfilled. The work has been accomplished. And now the mind places his beloved word into the hands. The darkness has no power of itself, except it be given by the Father of the Word and his own time, that out of the most horrible event in human history, the murder of the Creator of life, might come forth the greatest event, the rising of the Destroyer of death. Chapter 32, here's another one. He became an outlaw in order to restore the law. He took the sentence of death in order to abolish the sentence of death. Those who condemned him according to the law were themselves condemned by the law. For the only law he gave was love, and that love condemned them. They were judged by love, and he who is love is therefore was judged by them as a transgressor for their transgression. All right. I'm going to move on to the next section just because we're running out of time. So I'm going to find a good one. Here's a good one in the next section. And the next section is titled The Way of Quenching Desires. The Way of Quenching Desires. And here's chapter 38 in that section. I think this is a pretty good one. The great way, said the ancient sage, is ever without desire. Desire for created things disturbs the original harmony, the primal oneness, the perfect love. Such desire drives from the two, from separation. It chases after its object. It clings to its object. It is anxious and disturbed. Desire for created things equals torment, because such desire can never be fully fulfilled. Torment begins when the primal oneness, the perfect love, is broken. Thus, said the ancient sage, embrace simplicity, lessen selfishness, diminish desire. The sage acts without desire, hence he never fails, he never loses. He who keeps to the way will not desire to be filled. When one is attached to oneself and to the senses, one strives to fill oneself through self-love and sensual pleasure. But the more one strives, the more empty one becomes. In order to become full, one must empty oneself. Thus said the ancient sage, quote, in pursuit of learning, every day something is acquired. In pursuit of the way, every day something is dropped. Losing and losing, till you come to the state of acting without selfish desire. When you act selfishly, nothing is left undone. Ever without desire, the great way empties himself into his creation. Out of love and complete self-giving, he empties himself. Yet being the unchanging cause of all things, he remains ever full. Quenching the desires for created things, followers of the way likewise empty themselves out of love and complete giving, for in emptying themselves as he does, they are ever filled with him, and they are ever full. Gosh, I really did love the part where it says, in pursuit of learning, every day something is acquired. In pursuit of the way, every day something is dropped. Powerful. Powerful. As you guys can see, this thing is very interesting and exciting to read. I'm going to move on to the next section just based on our time constraints, because I have so many things within the actual text. I'm just reading one section in which he sort of re-articulates the Tao Te Ching within a logocentric perspective. So that's what I'm reading here. The next section gets us to the way of humility and forgiveness. And so I'll read one from this one. Here's a good one. Yeah. This one's from chapter 48. The way of humility and forgiveness in this section. And it reads, the way, said the ancient sage, quote, covers its cutting edge. It transcends entanglement, softens its light, merges with dust, unquote. True humility cannot be defined in words, for it is the raiment of the primal essence himself. The way of heaven clothed himself in it. Descending from his loftiness, he used it to hide his splendor, lest his creation be consumed by the fiery vision. Creation could not look directly upon his uncreated light, nor could it hear the voice of his thunders. Therefore he descended not in an earthquake, nor in a fire, nor in a terrible and mighty sound, but, as the ancient prophet, like rain upon a fleece, like raindrops falling upon the earth, softly, concealing himself in the veil of his flesh, speaking with us in the body, wrought in the womb of the maiden. Abasement, said the ancient sage, as the foundation of exaltation. Loftiness is based in lowliness. Hence the sage wears coarse garments but embraces the jewels in his bosom. Everyone who puts on the coarse garment of humility is like unto the way who puts it on before us. When, through his wearing the coarse body of our lowliness, creation beheld his loftiness, and at last received its jewel, the vision of its maker. Pretty good stuff there. Here is, I'll just skip to the next section. So the next section is titled The Way of Suffering. And here's a good one. Chapter 64. So chapter 64, this is on the way of suffering. Desire for created things combined with the senses becomes pleasure. The senses, stimulated by desire, take advantage of the sensible object. Sensual pleasure is the mother of division, breaking the primal oneness, the perfect love. Sensual pleasure is the mother of death, and the death of such pleasure is suffering. In desiring to escape pain, we seek refuge in sensual pleasure, calling it by the name of happiness. But in trying to blunt pain with pleasure, we but increase our pain, for pleasure and pain are intertwined. Therefore did the ancient sage cry, "O misery, happiness lies by its side. O happiness, misery lurks beneath it." Wherever there is pleasure, there must be pain. There must be pain. For through pain we have not chosen. The way turns us from illusory pleasure that we have chosen. Pain forces us to rise above the realm of the senses, to live according to our true nature, our original designation. There are two kinds of pain: pain of the senses, an absence of the object of the body's desire, and a pain of the soul, an absence of the object of the soul's desire. Pleasure of the senses is emptiness ever filling itself, yet remaining ever empty. Pleasure of the soul is fullness ever emptying itself, yet remaining ever full. Therefore, said the ancient sage, what is most full seems to be empty, but in its use cannot be exhausted. Dang, that is so good. I love these. Gosh. Here's in the next session, it's following the way of truth, which I like. Here's one that I really enjoyed in following the way of truth. The essence of the way, said the ancient sage, is supremely true. Within is the evidence. From the beginning until now, its name has remained, and it contains all truth. A two-faced person, one who is one thing outwardly and another inwardly. Such a one not only lies, but makes his very life a lie. Guile and duplicity sap one's power, engendering cowardice and fear. But the honest and true person, one who is the same outwardly and inwardly, remains unconfused, and thus has boldness without fear. When the way returns, he will come with boldness and with power, and there is no falsehood to be found in him. He has boldness because he is one. He has power because he is not double. He is unconquerable because he cannot be divided. His eye is single, and the light of his eye fills the whole of his body, of his unique eternal being. Holy, single, simple, and unconfused. He is therefore wholly true, and not only true, nor yet the embodiment of truth, but truth itself. For he said, I am truth. Unquote. Yeah. There's another one I liked. I think it was... The way is not found by those who seek after signs, although he may give signs. The way is not found by those who seek after wonders, though he may manifest wonders. The way is not found among those who seek after communion with spirits, although he alone is pure spirit and adored by all spirits. Those who seek after signs may behold false signs. Those who seek after wonders may be deceived by lying wonders. Those who seek after communion with spirits may come into contact with dark spirits hiding under the guise of light. The way is not found by these seekers, but by those who, whether they seek or not, are irresistibly drawn to what is wise and true, to what is simple and pure, to what is childlike, to what is lowly, and sadly, what is beautiful. I love these things. So I thought this was these were great. I'll start reading through some of the sections I wanted to talk to you guys about. So that basically concludes the gospel according to Lao Zi.